good research. Obviously that shocked the hell out of me. I'm a PI, and you're amazing me with your research. So that's so funny that you know that, because I don't often talk about that, but I love me some.
Part of the meaning of life is the search for the meaning of life. AJ Jacobs. My guest in this episode of Passing the Torch is a proud Navy veteran, EMT, cancer survivor, and vocal advocate for the military veteran community. You may know her as the host of Mysteries Decoded on the CW, and yes, she really is a licensed private investigator, or as Max's mom on Netflix's hit Stranger Things. Other shows she's appeared on include NCIS, Hawaii Five-0, and Nickelodeon's Game Shakers, to name a few. Without further ado, Passing the Torch with Jennifer Marshall starts now. First and foremost, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. Jennifer, this has been, I have a book that I carry around with me, and I've wanted you on my podcast for the past 7 years. 6 years. I started my podcast in January 2018, but I met you in August of that year, and since then, I've wanted you to be a guest. So this is a dream guest for sure.
Thank you. It's so funny because we met on Hawaii Five-0.
That's right.
In case the audience doesn't know. And, I met so many people that day, and you stuck in my head of all the people that I met. So it was just really nice to reconnect at the Military Influencer Conference.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very honored to be asked to be on your podcast and to be here. Thank you.
No, yeah, appreciate that. You're a big deal to me. And it's funny because at Mick, you were the MC for at least the first day at minimum.
Yeah.
And Mick was playing this video montage, your acting highlight reel. And one of the scenes, they're showing your Hawaii Five-0 scene. And I was telling the person next, actually it was Monica. She was sitting right next to me from Pinups for Vets. I'm like, I'm in that scene. That's me. That's my shoulder. I'm in that scene with her. But
that was a great scene. I loved shooting all of that. And even years later, it remains one of my favorite pieces that I've ever done because it was just so meaningful.
Yeah. No, I love it. On that, why is life great right now?
Oh my gosh. Life is great because, well, I have my mug out today because I'm about to hit 3 years of remission from cancer.
Has it been 3 years?
Yeah, it's been, it'll be 3 years in a few months. And, 2 years is like the big benchmark, and then 5 years is, the secondary benchmark. And you have to be really careful because my cancer, it metastasizes very quickly, so you have to stay on top of it. But, my oncologist said, you're my dream patient. I wish all patients were like you because the survival rates would be better. I'm pretty anal retentive about my health. So, yeah, I'm alive. My children are doing well. Just life is freaking great. That's all I can say.
I can't believe it's been 3 years because I remember reading your post when you first, or at least when you told everyone about it, right?
When I revealed it, yeah. So I was terrified to tell anybody when I was going through it because, I had a 45% survival rate. So that's a little less than half. And, going through treatment, I watched people not come back.
Yeah.
I watched people decline. And I just thought there's nothing more pathetic than dying in front of a live audience. So I waited until I was done. I waited till I was in remission. I had my last clean scan. And then I decided to come out, and people ask me, well, why'd you decide to come out at all? Because nobody really knew. I basically recycled a bunch of content on social media that I had, and posted some stuff I hadn't posted before, but I didn't do a lot. If you look at my IMDb, it's completely empty for 2021. Well, because I was in the chemo room getting treatment. Yeah, but I wanted to come out because I feel like a lot of people don't have the platform I have, and they want to be not secretive, but they want to be private about their medical issues. And for me, I wanted to tell as many people as I could, this is what my cancer looked like. I was in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
This can happen to you. Get tested, stay on top of it, because you don't want to go in the chemo room and see people dropping like flies. That's a very traumatic sort of thing to go through.
I love that you said about platform and promoting. How important is it for someone? Because you have a great following, and you're one of those people that people may not know your name if they see you on TV, but they're like, oh man, that's that's her from this thing.
Yeah.
But how important is it for people who have, you know, an audience or a bigger following to utilize their platform for something positive, or at least for strength?
It's so important. My following is not as big as, maybe people who do like viral reels, right? But I have a ton. My following is a ton of military, a ton of veterans, a ton of families who have a veteran in their life. And so that to me, it's like the quality and not necessarily the quantity, because I could
Mm.
have hundreds of thousands of followers, but my message is mainly focused on our community. And so it's kind of a lost message on other people to some extent. I think it's really, really important. If you are lucky enough to be in a position where you have a following, I really don't like social media, to be honest with you. My reps kind of get on me like, hey, you haven't posted. I posted every time my show is on where there's a new season of Mysteries Decoded, I will post out of respect for the guests and the co-hosts because I want to promote their work. But I'm really not somebody that's like, oh my God, this is what I did. Look at me, right? And so because I have a platform, I said, well, there's a couple things I've gone through in my life that are pretty crappy. And so I want others to avoid those pitfalls if they can. So if you do have a following, try to use it for good in some way. I mean, just don't, post videos all the time. I know those are hilarious, but you got to throw something good in there every once in a while. You got to help people.
Yeah. You talked about your IMDb page in 2021, because these are my notes for you. It's 4 pages, right? And like 90% of it is your bio of just things that I just cobbled together from all your different websites and things that you've done. But you mentioned, aside from 2021, you said your IMDb was kind of slim that year. But if someone were to come up to ask you, what is it like? What do you do if you're meeting someone brand new at a dinner party? What do you do, or what do you say?
It's funny you say that. So I don't live in Los Angeles anymore, but we're going to keep where I live a secret. Martin, but
Yeah.
general public is not to know. I generally do not tell people. I don't. Um, I have another life where I live, and I generally tell people what I do here. I tell them I'm a private investigator. If it's pertinent, I'll tell them that I work in TV. But for the most part, I want people to get to know me. And Los Angeles is a very transactional place, right? So you would tell people what you did, and then immediately people would want to talk to you, and people would want to hang out with you, and people would want something from you. And I grew very, weary of that. And so I basically just keep it to I'm Jennifer Blank, which is my legal name. Marshall was my maiden name that I used for TV. And I just pretty much keep it. It's funny because my son told someone on his basketball team, he had a Stranger Things shirt on. And his friend was like, "You like Stranger Things?" He's like, "Yeah, my mom is on it." And he was like, "You're such a liar." He's like, "You're a liar." And so everyone on the basketball team thought he was a liar. And he's like, "Mom, tell them." And I was like, "Baby," I was like, "Just don't tell people." I was like, "I just want to have a normal life." But I felt so bad. So he never told anybody again.
What a flex, though. Like, hey.
He was so mad. He was like, "Mom, I'm telling the truth." I was like, "I know, babe, but like that's not anybody's business. So
Yeah.
just like chill out." And I understand, but you don't tell anybody again. I like my privacy.
Do you ever get mistaken for another actress?
Mm. Okay. Yes. Sometimes people will be like, "You're Jessica Chastain or Bryce Dallas Howard." I'm always like, "Yes, I'm like a Timu version of both of them."
Yeah.
However, I'll tell you this. So I am an EMT. I am a state certified firefighter where I live. We have a combination apartment. So we have like paid people and we have volunteers. I'm paid by a small stipend. But it's funny because one day we were selling things for the fire department, and this woman, this she's not a woman, she's like 14. She walks up to me on the phone and she's like, "Oh my God, has anybody ever told you you look like this?" And there's a picture of me on Stranger Things. And I looked at it and I went, "What?" I gaslit this girl, Martin. I feel so bad. But everybody was there, right? And I was like, "Oh, her hair's like kind of weird." And she's like, "Well, yeah, it takes place in the 80s." And I was like, I don't know. So do you want to pay with cash or Venmo?
Nice.
God forgive me, I gaslit this girl. But it just wasn't the time. Maybe if it was private, I would have said yes. But yes, I've been noticed as me. I've been on planes and people have been like texting or like messaging me on Instagram, like, "Is this you?" or whatever. It's a lot less now, thankfully, that my show is in hiatus. But when Mysteries Decoded starts airing again, it'll happen more. And the only time I get recognized for Stranger Things is when I look like crap. Because on the show,
Your hair's like,
look like crap.
yeah.
So it's incentive to look decent.
I wish somebody would go up to you like, hey, was that you in season 6, episode whatever of Hawaii Five-0? Are you that Lieutenant Colonel?
You know, right after Hawaii Five-0, I had a ton of people who had lost track of me after high school and stuff. They messaged me. I don't know if you ever saw the ratings on that, but it got great ratings that episode. And for the audience, I'll give it to you in a nutshell. I played a joint mortuary affairs officer, and Martin played what do they call
The NCO, but I had a speaking role. They called it it automatically created an IMDb credit for me.
Mhm.
So on there it says Dover NCO because
Oh,
it was
it's
out of
okay.
Dover. It was out of Dover Air Force Base.
What do they call the enlisted team? I don't know because I wasn't.
I think distinguished transfer. I believe is
Okay,
the
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it got great ratings,
Hmm.
and I got a ton of, I got a ton of feedback. Like, thank you so much. And for me, that episode was so impactful, as I'm sure it was for you, because
Yeah,
we brought the everyday sacrifice of service members into the home of the viewers. Most of the time, a civilian viewer who has no idea.
yeah. Now that was really cool because we got to hang out with Jorge Garcia,
Yeah.
obviously a regular cast member on 5-0, but also from Lost. But no, that's really funny. I could totally see the Bryce Dallas Howard. That it's your eyes, and I guess the hair too, right? 'Cause it's very
Well, when
distinct red
my
hair.
when my hair was cut like this, Bryce Dallas Howard was doing Jurassic Park, and my son, who's now 10, was like 3. He would watch Jurassic Park and he would scream, "Mommy, mommy," and he'd tap the. And I'm like, no, she's paid a lot more than me. That's not me. But Bryce Dallas Howard, if you ever want to pass on a role, like let them know there's like a
Yeah.
wish.com version. I'm a lot taller, but I can do it, girl. Have them call me.
Someone gave me an ultimate compliment about 6 months ago, and I don't see it, but I was like, they're crazy. But they said I look like Glenn Powell, and I was like, I don't look anything like Glenn Powell, but I will 100% take it because that man is. I was like, oh my god,
I kind of see it.
yeah. Maybe I should have put
That's
that
a
on my
great
acting resume,
compliment.
huh? Yeah, I was honored, and maybe I should add that. So I got into acting probably in 2009, and I remember I auditioned for something one time, and on my acting resume or whatever, I made something at home, and I put as special skills, I put kind of sort of looks like Matt Damon, and but people have called me on that, and sometimes it's just about how can you get someone to remember you.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that.
I'm gonna add Glenn Powell.
You should put Glenn Powell. I see the Matt Damon, but the Glenn Powell is also more of the like how he is, the swagger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely put that.
All right. I did a lot of research on you, and I've been listening. I didn't listen to you on the recent Drive On podcast because I know that one just got released, but I have listened to you over the years on various other podcasts. But you discussed growing up in a small one stoplight town. Do you mind just like talking about your mindset and confidence as a teenager, and what would your teenage self say if you could go back in time? Here's the second part of that question, and
Mhm.
this ties into. I read that you're a big fan of Scott Bakula. I don't know how true that is. So
That is so true. You really did research. That is so true.
yeah, and because Quantum Leap is one of my favorite shows of all time, the original and the remake, and then the remake got canceled, and I was just
It's a
devastated.
shame. That was a great reboot, and reboots suck, but that
I-
was a
It
great
was great.
reboot.
Caitlin Bassett. I mean, everyone in that cast, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but imagine if you or Sam Beckett or Addison, Caitlin Bassett's character could go back. What would you say to your teenage self, or what would your teenage self say if you told her all the great things ahead? I know that's kind of a longer question, but
Teenage Jennifer would not believe any of this. Would
yeah.
not believe any of this. No. Like people ask me, did you always want to be an actor? I'm like, I didn't. I grew up like poor white trash. Like, be an actor? Come on. No, that wasn't even a thought process. I, teenage Jennifer would be like, wow, that's amazing. Would not believe me. what would I say to her? You know, I struggled a lot with self-confidence, I think, as a lot of us do in adolescence, but I just always had this feeling as a teenager, like I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not, you know, all of the opposites. Remember the Saturday Night Live skit? I'm good enough, I'm smart enough.
Yeah.
Okay. I was the opposite. Like I'm not this, I'm not that. I think I just would have told myself like, um, be kind to yourself, you know, give yourself a lot of leeway. You're going to make mistakes. But you have a great future in front of you. As soon as you can get out of like this generational poverty thing and make your own way, great things are coming for you. But I'm a big believer in the butterfly effect. So I don't know how much I would tell myself because I love my life how it is and I would like it to be this way. Yeah, I never would have believed that. I mean, I know everybody has different levels of poverty, but like, I remember times our power was shut off. We had to go without a car for about 2 years in Colorado, which, you know, it snows in Colorado. Constantly wore shoes that were too small, which has led to problems with my feet today. It was a rough time. And I'm very thankful that I grew up without a lot. I could, you know, I've been poor and I've had money and I can live poor again if needed. But it was a rough time for sure.
Well, if you ever run into, let's just say, I hope you continue to get acting gigs, but let's just say you don't, you could always go back on The Price is Right and win the.
I could. I could. The funny thing about Price is Right, so the audience doesn't know, but I won the Price is Right on the Veterans Day episode. It was a bunch of pinups for vets. They all said like, "Hey, if we go together, we can get in. We can go like to the front of the line because we have a group." And I remember I got up that morning and I was like, I really don't want to get all decked out with pinup stuff. Like I'm really tired. I think I'd shot the day before. I was exhausted, but I didn't want to let other people down. So I got up and I put my red lips on. I did everything, and then we went and stood in line. And I was talking to producers, and I knew one of us would get picked. I knew, and I knew I had a pretty good shot. But when they called my name, I did more surprised than what I was. Uh, but yeah, you just go in and you schmooze with the producers. They want fun people.
Yeah.
And I went home. I won the showcase. I went home. I won a car. I won a bunch of other stuff. I never drove the car. My former husband drove it to the house. I sold it the next day, and I paid off all my adoption bills. And
Nice.
you know, I've never looked at my son and been like, "Oh, I wish I would have had that car." That's never gone through my head. Uh, he's the love of my life, as my other children are, and so yeah, it was just meant to be. It was awesome, and he's way better than a car, like 100,000 times better than a car.
Was Scott Bakula also a former love of your life? Was there a celebrity crush there?
I loved watching him on Quantum Leap. I loved the idea of going back in time.
Yeah.
And then I came so close. I was working with a director who had him attached as the male lead, and they wanted to attach me as the female lead. And I was like, and then for whatever reason, it fell through. I think it was because NCIS New Orleans took off. And so Scott got attached to that. So I never met him. I never worked with him. I was so close. But yes, I love Scott Bakula. The first movie I ever saw in the theater was a movie with Scott Bakula in it. So that's so funny that you know that, because I don't often talk about that, but I love me some Scott Bakula. I do. I do.
No, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. That's God, that's so good.
You've done such good research. That shocked the hell out of me. I'm a PI, and you're amazing me with your research.
I appreciate that. Is it going to weird you out if I tell you some of the facts I have about you, some of the notes?
I'm waiting.
Classes moved to Carbondale, Colorado, and joined 1 month after graduating high school.
I did.
Class of 79 people. I
Yeah.
put Roaring Fork. Is that the name of your town or high school?
That's the name of the high school. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I'm going to bring up because it's a question later. Congressionally honored by Congressman Scott McInnes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things. Like you were stationed on the Teddy Roosevelt. I always like, for Navy veterans, I always like to know like what ship they were assigned to, because I just think that's cool.
It's so cool, and it's so different depending. Like my best friend was on a destroyer. I was on a carrier. You know, it's a big difference between 330 people and 5,000.
You know, I left one thing out in my intro. I should have put was Junior Sailor of the Quarter.
I was. Claim to fame, you know.
No. I want to just fast forward. So we talked about like you growing up, and then fast forward to when you're separating through the military. You served for 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Just shy of 5.
Yeah. uh, definitely long enough to get used to the routine and just the military way.
Yeah.
You decided to take a new path, and probably I feel like now, like people like you and a few other people have made this a more paved path. But I think when you're separating, it was probably still a lot of uncertainty, and we don't have the information. It's not like it was that long ago, but there's definitely way more information in now than even compared to like 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so please, like, set the scene on your first day out of the Navy. Like, what's going through your mind and reflecting back, regardless of how much you planned, what's something that caught you off guard?
I had a really rough transition. People would look at me now and be like, life is perfect. That's great. No, very rough transition. I got sick from the anthrax shots. I had to get out. I was already attached to my second command. It was a FEMA billet at Fort Monroe in Hampton, Virginia. And I ended up having to get out because I was too ill from the anthrax vaccinations. So really, when I got out, I was not, to be completely honest with you, I was not even really focused on the future. I was focused on what is wrong with me? Why am I so sick? Let me try to get some sort of specialist to see me. So that was about 2 years of that. And thankfully, I was married to, I'd gotten married to my former husband, and he was still in the military. And so I had TRICARE, and, we had like a set amount of money coming in. So I would work here and there while I went to community college part time, but it wasn't like, okay, now you have to leave the Navy and work 40 hours a week, because I really couldn't have done that at the time. And I think I was just going through a deep period of grief. It's like I was a long distance runner, I was a basketball player, and then all of a sudden I was in a bed 18 hours a day. That was really, really hard. I'm so thankful that I'm better now, but it was a very rough 18 to 24 months of my life. And I think, you know, after that point, I kind of floundered because I really wanted to be in the Navy. I saw myself being in the Navy full time, for 20, 30 years, and it just didn't work out that way. So that was something that I wasn't expecting, because I didn't think I was going to get out, and I hadn't planned to get out. And I didn't think I was college material, so I worried about that. Now I have a master's degree. Believe in yourself, people. You're a lot smarter than what you think. But yeah, there was just so much that I never could have predicted would come.
So how did you find the right approach to sustaining the momentum necessary to succeed? Because I'm a firm believer in like just momentum, right? Like one positive thing leads to another. But yeah, how did you find that right approach, just fresh out of the Navy? Because I think that's what people struggle with, is with trying, like, that lack of structure.
Yeah, it's hard. Civilians think, oh, you were in the military, it should be an easy path out. It's not, because the military structures everything. And so for a lot of us, you go in at 17. Some people didn't have jobs before, and it's like your whole day is planned for you. Everything is planned.
Yeah.
I think for me, I knew that the Navy was a stepping stone to something better, and I didn't want to waste that. I knew that Uncle Sam was going to pay for my education. I knew I could be the first college graduate in my family. And so it was just, again, like this deep, I think it was this deep seated sense of insecurity. Like, you are not good enough. You will never make anything of yourself. You will be poor like you were when you were younger. And it was just kind of that fear that drove me. But whatever it is that drives you, hold on to that and go with it. It's obviously not a very healthy thing to carry long term, is like to live in deep seated fear. But it worked for me. And I think when I got into acting, because that's a very hard career to stay motivated in, that's an exceptionally hard career.
Right.
You go through lulls, you go through periods where you don't book. Right now the industry is coming off of a strike. We have networks that are crumbling and consolidating, and it's a very tumultuous time in the industry, and a lot of people are letting that get to their heads. And for me, I'm like, okay, haven't worked in a few months, good to go. But I think the best advice I got with acting was, this is not a linear career. You have to put as many irons into the fire as you can. You can do all that you're supposed to do in a linear career, and A leads to B leads to C. That's not how this goes. It goes up, around, twists, sometimes goes off the map, comes back. And I think just putting enough out there and knowing that all these projects that I could work on or I couldn't work on, that were kind of brewing in pre-production. I have a giant folder in my Gmail that says shit that never went anywhere, because that's how Hollywood is. It's like, hey, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. Take it with a grain of salt. and move on. But putting as many irons in the fire as possible was super important for me because something had to hit, and it always did. 9 out of 10 things would fade, but that one thing was something that I could work on, something that I could collaborate on, and it kind of kept me going.
Who gave you that advice? Because that's excellent advice.
I wish I knew.
Was it a
I wish
time?
I
It
knew.
was Scott Bakula as Scant Beckett.
He came back in time.
Yeah.
I don't know who it was, but it stuck with me. And that's unfortunate that I don't remember who it was, because it has made such a difference in my career. And I always tell younger actors coming up, I tell them that exact thing, because if you think it's linear, you're going to get depressed, sad, lose your motivation, and think that you suck and leave the industry.
It's funny. I remember eating lunch with you on that set of 5-0, and I was just asking you advice, and you were just like, "Why would you?" I remember you specifically asked me like, "Why would you want to get into this business? Like, it's horrible, And but I'm glad you said that, because, and I still want to, but you weren't trying to paint a fake picture. It's like,
Ugh,
hey, let me give you the, like, because we all see the glitz and the spotlight, or we hear, especially for actors that were former military or veterans, and they hit it big, and it's like, we hear, that's one out of a million or whatever the odds are.
yeah.
So it's best to paint that picture. Was there anything in the military that you applied directly to acting, or anything that has helped you better to show better emotion, or better tell a story?
People think that acting and the military are worlds apart. There is some crossover. So obviously you act a different way around people your own pay grade than you do the captain or the colonel, depending on branch, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, there is some acting involved in any sort of military service. It's also like if we're wearing our uniforms and we're out in town, we're going to act differently than if we're in the barracks drinking with our buddies. So I would say that's a crossover. And then I just really approach everything I did in the industry as a mission, right? And it's funny that you remember the conversation we had at lunch, because I always tell people, if you're a masochist, this is the career for you.
That's what you said. I swear that's exactly what you said. I
Yeah.
promise you. That's exactly what you said. I
Yeah.
didn't want to say that, but
Yeah.
um,
No, that's what I tell people, because you go into something and let's say you submit 10 auditions.
yeah,
You never hear anything back. You could be number 2 or you could be the worst one. You never hear anything back. So then you start to question. So listen, if you're thinking about going into the industry, what other people think of you is none of your business. And you just go and trudge along. Like, it's not, you go into an audition. What does casting want? Sometimes casting doesn't even know.
yeah.
Do your performance, bring that character to life, let it go, and move on. Because there were plenty of things I didn't book. Casting later came back to me with a different role, and I ended up booking that. Trust the process. But yeah, it's definitely a career for masochists.
Man,
For
that's so
sure.
crazy. That's exactly what you said. God, that's good.
You didn't bring that up, and I was like, I wonder if I developed the masochist line after I shot
No,
the
no,
life.
you did.
But
I couldn't remember the word, but then as soon as you said it, I'm like, I knew it was something like that. In my mind, I was thinking like BDSM or something, but I was like, that's not exactly it. No, like, because that advice, like, it was really good, and it really just, again, just painted the authentic picture and reality of what it is. Between that and Jenna Fisher's book, I forgot what it's called, but the Actor's Guide to Hollywood or whatever she wrote like 8 years ago. Those have
yeah.
probably been some of the best pieces of advice.
Oh, and that book is so good. She's so transparent about things. And if you go into this business with, rose-colored glasses, you read something like that, and you'll be like, okay, that's definitely not what I thought.
To your knowledge, have you ever lost a role like where you were like in the final three, and it ended up going to someone like a Bryce Dallas Howard or Jessica Chastain, or just someone you're like,
Uh, no one. Oh, funny enough. Okay. Yes and no. There have been roles that I have lost to people earlier in my career who had more experience. And generally, I like to watch whoever books it. Most of the time, I really love their performance. And I'm like, oh my God. Most actors don't do that because they get butthurt that they don't get
yeah,
booked. I love to see, what did casting see in this person? And 90% of the time, I'm like, this is great. There have been some times that I've lost a role. This was years back, because they said, we don't have enough experience. And, if we're on set, we need to know that you're going to deliver. And it's like, okay, well, how do I get that experience if you're not booking me? Right. But I did have casting tell me, you were the best choice for this role, but we had to go with this other actress because, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. You never know why you book or why you don't book. You don't know. Sometimes the best actor does not book it. Period. The end. There was, what is that movie with? Oh my gosh, what is that movie with? It's this is gonna okay. I don't even know if I can say it, so I won't. I don't even know if I can say it. There is a movie that I auditioned for, and I went to like the top three, and then it did end up going to somebody, but I don't think I was supposed to know that I was in the top three.
Mm.
But then I went and watched it. I liked her, but I thought, yeah, I definitely won't say what it is because I did think in that particular role, I was better suited for it. But that is a rarity. Most of the time I see the other actors. I kind of felt like she was playing like she was playing somebody military-esque. I'll leave it at that. And I felt it was more of a put on than that's who she was.
Yeah.
And then I saw how much that movie made, and I was like, that would have been so much money.
That's okay because now you're here with me. That's all that matters.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I'm happy for her, though. I'm not a hater.
Hey, I want to do a quick throwback. Totally random. For Halloween this year, you should dress as Max's mom. And then people go up to you like, "Oh my god, you look just like." That's the best costume ever.
I totally should.
If you haven't done that before.
No, actually, I dressed like Max one year. My friend Megan dressed like Dustin, and I dressed like Max, and it was funny. People loved it. Yeah, they loved it. Obviously, we were like very old versions of these characters, but
Yeah.
I should dress like Max's mom. I totally should.
No, that's good. I've won as
No,
Matt
it's like
Damon.
the final season. It's the final season, so like this, it's either this year or never.
No, that's good. I have one deep question, and then
What's
some
that?
really lighthearted, funny questions. But I just want to give you like a time. This is a story that I thought was really fascinating about you, and of the perfect question. And I've had, I think this will be episode 68. I have a question bank of about 350 questions now that I've just continued to build upon. Yeah, and some of them, like I will like ask the same questions. There's a couple questions I ask at the end of every podcast, but this one I specifically had for you, and I've had it for about 2 years. But are you ready, Jennifer Marshall?
No pressure.
Scott Bakula gave me this question. That's the goal. I want Scott Bakula to like whenever this gets shared on social media. Hopefully, he likes this.
I'm gonna tag him obsessively.
You have mentioned in the past that film and TV are forever, and that you have a 15-second clip of your grandmother that you will watch on repeat. With all the film and TV roles to your credit, there's a lot of content for your kids to reference. But what is one role you would want your kids to look back on and beam with pride?
I'm gonna cheat. First of all, yes, I still watch that 15-second clip. I miss her so much. She's been gone 31 years. Miss her.
Yeah.
I'm going to cheat. I would say they can watch Mysteries Decoded just because it's me. I'm not playing someone and they can see me. I would have them watch Hawaii Five-0 because it was such a meaningful role. But the third one is something that I shot in Budapest a few months ago. And I can't say what it is, but that one was so cool because they flew me to Hungary, and I flew first class, and I stayed in a 5-star hotel for an entire week to shoot for one day. Like, if that's not the epitome of like a small modicum of success, I was so thankful. And some of the other actors were complaining they had to be there, and I was like, we get a free vacation and we stay in a 5-star hotel, and I'm not a bougie person. So it was so fun. It was so great. And I will say that one of the leads in that show is a very, very, very famous actor. It's one of the Chris's, I'll put it that way. And I remember he came up to me. There's so many Chris's. He came up to me in front of a bunch of people, and he said, Jennifer, he said, your tape was so good, and I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much. He said, I saw the screenshot, I saw the still, and I thought, oh, she looks the role. I hope she can act. He said, easiest, fastest casting ever. And he shook my hand, he walked away, and I almost died. And then the other actors were like, oh my did he seriously just say that to you? I was like, yes. And I was fangirling inside. He was the nicest, kindest person that I worked with. But that to me is like one of the roles where I'm like, yes.
You don't have to say if I'm right. I just want to guess because I feel like I'm right. Chris Pratt. But I don't need a yes or a no. But that's incredible. That's so cool. Well, look at you. Like, just go to Hungry for a day.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Like, y'all complaining that we got to be here?
Yeah. I love,
Y'all,
like, you've mentioned Mysteries Decoded a couple times. What is something with that show? What is something new that you've learned about yourself? And do you feel like your ability to ask questions and be objective has improved?
I think that I've always been objective. I've been more skeptical. I think one thing I've learned about myself doing that show is there are crazy things out there. There are crazy things. I went to that show like total skeptic. And then we'd go certain places that were haunted and nothing would happen. Then we'd go places that were haunted and things would happen. And I'm telling you, I would go above and beyond to try to figure out, did they rig this door? Did they rig this window? Did they, I would take my equipment in looking for bugs, nothing. I think there's a lot more going on, maybe whatever they call paranormal, right? Could
Yeah.
be another dimension, it could be whatever. There's a lot more going on than I originally thought. And I have learned to be very open minded doing that show. I've also learned to trust my own intuition because I have a lot of producers on that show. And I've had showrunners and I've had directors and, they're segment directors because it's not a scripted show. And I've had directors say, okay, this is how this needs to go. And I've said, hold on, hold on. And the third season, I'm a producer, so I have more say. But first and second season, I'd be like, but that's not, with due respect, that's not how I do things as an investigator. That's not how the military does things. Whatever I may be investigating. And I've learned to stand up for myself and say, I am the subject matter expert in this. You are the director. I will show you deference and respect, but I'm the subject matter expert. And you have to take what I'm saying into consideration because I'm a licensed private investigator. I worked 6,000 hours to get my license.
Jeez.
There is a reason I know what I'm talking about, and I need you to go with me on this. So it's definitely made me more self-confident as far as just standing up for myself. And I've never lacked in that area, but there's been several segments that were never considered when we built the episode. And then when we went in and filmed it, I said, no, this is what we have to do. And it ends up making the cut and it ends up being an important part of the investigation. So yeah, trust your subject matter experts.
No, that's awesome. How many countries have you visited because of that show?
So with the show, right now we're a domestic show. I hope to go international, but on my own, I just went to my 33rd country. So Hungary was my 33rd country.
And then, can you talk about, since we're on the subject, talk about your time in Africa?
Oh, okay. So my former husband and I had raised his two daughters from his previous marriage, my stepdaughters, whom I'm still very close to now. And they were leaving the house. They were teenagers. And so I said, I want to go to Africa. I want to do some work with an NGO before we try to have a baby. I'd really just like to do that because once you have a baby, you're kind of on lockdown.
Yeah.
So I went to Uganda. I volunteered with a non-governmental organization there. I taught at an orphanage and a day school. These are areas where, because sometimes voluntourism, you're replacing local teachers. No, this was a village with no electricity, no plumbing. They could not get local teachers. The teachers would go to Kampala, which is the major city, or Entebbe, which is the capital. They would go there. I think Kampala is the capital. And Kampala or Entebbe is the capital. But long story short, teachers would go there because it's better paid. There's electricity, plumbing. So I would go there and I would teach at this orphanage. And then went back. I went in 2014, went back in 2015. And I ended up sponsoring some kids to go to school there, because if you want to go to a school that makes any sort of difference, it's private. And, I always tell people, like, you can't change the world, but you can change the world for certain people. And so for those kids, there was a boy who was in my class when he was in 6th grade, and I found him to be very intelligent, inquisitive, but he was an orphan and he had nobody to pay for his schooling. So, I sent money and supported him, and now he is he's like the township veterinarian, and he does all the cows and the pigs and the sheep and the livestock, and I'm just incredibly proud of him. And he still goes back to that orphanage, and he works on all of her pigs for free and castrates animals for free, and gives them their shots. And I'm exceptionally proud of him. And I think God put me in that position, and said do whatever you want to do. And I'm very blessed to be an American and be born in America, and I had that extra money to be able to do that. And he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing.
That's fantastic. I love that. Do you have like 28 hours in one day, or it just seems, I don't know. It just seems like all these things that you've accomplished, and it's very impressive. And I don't know, I feel like you've unlocked like a new infinity stone or something, and you can expand the amount of hours in one day.
I don't watch TV, which is weird for actors.
Yeah.
I generally only see a show if I'm going to audition for it. I'll watch an episode.
Yeah.
Because I grew up without TV, right?
Yeah.
So I don't watch TV, and that you know that frees up a lot of time. And I'm also very lucky because as actors, unless you're starring on a show, you're not really working all the time. And so it's made a lot of time. That's how I was able, funny enough, when the actors were on strike, when SAG-AFTRA was on strike, that's when I went through the fire academy, and I was able to go through the fire academy and become state certified. And if the actors hadn't been on strike, I wouldn't have done that. But I was like, I'm not going to sit around. I don't know how long we're going to be on strike for. I need to go do something. So
No.
I did.
No, good deal.
Yeah.
Here's a light question. If you had a dinner party with 5 guests, past or present, who would you invite? And Scott Bakula would be the waiter, so he can't be one of your dinner party guests, but because he's serving all of you.
I'm going to be the waiter. All right. I'll talk to Scott Bakula after. I'll help him clean up a little bit. I would say George Washington,
Okay.
obviously, founder of this country.
G-Dub.
Yep. The GOAT. I would say Martin Luther King. What he
Okay.
did was so important for this country.
Great first name.
Yes. Exceptional first name. I would invite some of the suffragettes who fought for the right to have women vote, because I feel like that's super important. Two more people. I would invite Angelina Jolie, because I think that she is an example of somebody who has used her wealth and prestige and her fame. She was an ambassador for the United Nations.
Yeah.
She's done a ton of work overseas. She did so much work in Cambodia. I went to Cambodia in 2020, and she's beloved there for all the work that she's done. Yes, she's a good actress, but there's a lot of good actresses. I don't care about that. I care that she's used her power for good. And who would be my fifth? I think my fifth would probably be Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay. Hey, that's right there. The man in the arena. That's what's right behind me.
Yes, Theodore Roosevelt. And I have a bunch of Theodore Roosevelt stuff in here. I just feel like, he did so much as president, and he shaped this country for the better. And yeah, I'm a big TR fan. So
Cool. No, love
yeah,
it. Love it.
yeah.
And again, Scott Bakula would be the waiter. All right. So here's another question. What purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life?
Mm,
I used to say $50, but inflation kind of messed it up.
inflation. I would say I'm a big scrapbooker.
Mm.
So anytime I can get like photos, you get the photos from Walgreens. So I'd say $20 photos from Walgreens and like $80 of supplies. And I love photos. After I had cancer, my brain just wasn't the same anymore. And so I always said, if I don't record it, if I don't take a picture of it, it didn't happen. So I love just sitting there and recreating the memories. And that is one thing my kids will fight over when I die. For sure. They've already told me. So I've started making individual scrapbooks for them, because I used to do like, oh, Christmas, and it's all the kids. Yeah, I'm a big scrapbooker. I'm like 102 apparently.
I think that kind of ties into another fun question that I have is what have you changed your mind about in the last few years?
Um, I have in my 20s and 30s, I was very black and white. Anyone who knew me, very black and white. No, no,
Yeah.
no, it's right or it's wrong. I had done zero drugs. I was, law abiding citizen, all these things. And then at 39, I'm faced with cancer. And I'm like, I haven't done anything quote unquote fun my entire life because I've just been trudging along, do all the things. And, I think that I was really wrong on some recreational drugs. I really was. My oncologist ended up telling me, hey, I can put you on Ambien and something to stimulate your appetite and, 18 different prescription medications, or you can get a card for medical marijuana and that'll solve a lot of your problems. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm 40. I have kids. I can't smoke marijuana. Well, I never smoked. I just took gummies, but that helped me get through cancer
Yeah.
treatment. And 25-year-old Jennifer would have been like, oh, absolutely not. That's against the law. I also think that mushrooms are something that pharma does not want us to have access to because they like to have us hooked on their medication. But I think that mushrooms have a very important use in mental health. And Andrew Huberman from Huberman Lab, who's
Yeah.
a neuroscientist at Stanford, he has a great episode on how to do mushrooms for the most scientific, using the most scientific methods for the best effect to essentially rewire your brain and release the trauma from your brain. And I think that was very important for me to get through a lot of the grief and the fear that I had from having stage 3 cancer.
No. I love that. That's I'm a big fan of Andrew Huberman. I watch a lot of his
Love.
yeah, a lot of his content.
Yeah.
All right, last couple questions. What's a secret habit besides scrapbooking? What's a secret habit that you have that might surprise most people?
A secret habit. I don't know if it's a habit. I love to bake, but I can't cook worth a shit. So I've been thankful enough. My former husband cooked, my daughter cooked, my son cooked, my boyfriend cooks. I don't cook, but I do bake like nobody's business. So yeah, I don't think you would look at a woman my age and be like, that woman cannot cook. It's not that I'm bad at it. I just don't do it. If you're like, here's this chicken, I'd be like, cool. All right. Guess
No.
I'm eating cereal. It's pretty bad. I mean, I'm almost 44 years old and I can't cook. It's I don't
No. All right, if there was a giant billboard with your message on it for the world to see, where would you want that billboard to be and what would you want that billboard to say?
I would want it to be every time I was on Sunset or every time I was in Hollywood, I would always drive down the road early in the morning and there'd be all those billboards. And it was real sleepy and it's a city of dreams, right?
Mhm.
I would want the billboard to have some sort of motivational something on it because I feel like people there, there's a lot of people who die from drug abuse or overdoses, or it's a very rough sort of place. And it's a place where if people's dreams don't come true, they can feel defeated. But it would be something about, something about having success. You just can't limit yourself, right? Because I feel like a lot of people go into entertainment and they're like, if I don't do this and if I don't have success, then I'm a failure. No, anyone can have success. You just have to find your path. Maybe it's not entertainment, and that's fine. But expand your mind and be open to that because there's no point living in a studio in Hollywood, scraping by, being sad, wishing for something that's not happening when you could, move to the middle of America, find a partner, have children if that's what you want to do, have a farm. Just don't limit yourself in what you think success can be because you have one life and you want to make the most of it. So I think I need to get a tagline for that, but it would definitely be something like that.
Love it. All right, final question, and this is there's an amazing podcaster named Justin Shank, podcast called The Growth Now Movement. but it's his question. But I want to ask you this. And the question is, take everything you've ever been known for and accomplished, right? So your efforts in Africa, your acting, EMT, private investigating, playing basketball, being in the Navy, all these different things, and your accomplishments, it's too long to list. If you're on your deathbed and you can only be remembered for once, remove all that stuff. You're on your deathbed, can only be remembered for one sentence. What would you want that sentence to be? Or even a word?
Motherhood.
Ooh, love it. God, that's great.
I have a lot of friends who have forsaken families for career,
Yeah.
and I see a lot of regret in their 30s and 40s and 50s. I had a wonderful manager who told me, have your babies. Hollywood will wait. You can be the 90-year-old woman in a Depends commercial. You can always work, have babies. And God rest her soul, she passed, Eberlyn.
Hmm.
But motherhood has given me more joy than everything put together. And at one point, I thought I didn't want to be a mother. I didn't want to have children. And the older I got, I thought, I think I'm pretty good at this. Maybe I'll have more kids and more kids. And if I could have more children, I would. But motherhood.
Love it. What do you want? If people want to learn more about you, where do you want them to go?
Well, I have a website, jennifermarshall.com, but honestly, Instagram, Jen13, two N's in Jen. Facebook, I just love talking to people. I love getting to know people. And I know a lot of people, they just post stuff and they run away, but I actually like to have conversations with people. And I've met some amazing people online, and I really like to harness the power of social media for good. So that is a definite plus of social media. There's a lot of negatives, but that's a plus that I've met some great people. And yeah, pop on over and say, hey, I'm all about chatting it up.
Perfect. And I'll link all that. I'll have some show notes. Did you have any parting thoughts or parting shots?
Yeah, you have one life. You have one life. Live it to the fullest. Oftentimes we think, well, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this. You're limiting yourself. No one else is limiting you. So you can do a lot more than you think. Um, one life.
Beautiful. That's